Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another tropical outlook and discussion here by Asian Weather Forecast. And this is going to be a big update here on the North Atlantic hurricane season, as we have a lot to cover up now. We now have Tropical Depression 2L, which came from 93L up to the East Coast and watching out for Tropical Storm Bill very soon. We now have a 20 to 70% for 92L, looking at maybe the big Claudette, and we have a new disturbance here in the MDR, which can very well become something very interesting here. So we have a bill very soon in the Battle Claudette with maybe soon 94L, which has not been issued yet, or 92L. So we have a lot to talk about. Looks like June is waking up very, very early here. But before we get in the video, I recommend subscribe to the channel so you guys can get updated when I do tropical forecasts. It's only June. We still have the peak month left to come, so be sure to smash that subscribe button and as well bell icon so you can get notified as soon as I post those videos, and as well smash that like button so we can get the algorithm to recommend this video towards more people. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So let's now go ahead and get a look now at the North Atlantic hurricane season 5-day tropical weather outlook. And does this look very, very different compared to yesterday's forecast? Obviously, this was not there. This was definitely not in the red. And this was never even to be talked about. So we have a lot to talk about. So we have a ton of new information. I'm hoping they have another weather forecast but after the 5 p.m. advisory. But right now, we're really watching out for the main focus is Tropical Depression 2, which has now formed from 93L. So a lot of people wondering why was that 1020 yesterday, but now it's a depression. Well, because the National Hurricane Center waited a long time to pull the trigger here, but I really did see this coming. But I'm not sure if I saw this being Bill, but I mean, it took Bill away from 92L, took the spotlight away. So right now, this is at 35 miles an hour, 35 miles an hour already. So this can very well be Tropical Storm Bill, most likely by the 11 p.m. Eastern Time advisory. So we can very well wake up to having Bill to make it letter B here for the season. This is now at minimal center pressure at 1,006 millibars. So it actually has decent millibar status as you compare it to being a depression. It's located at 35.0 degrees north and 73.7 degrees west, and it's moving very, very rapid at a very fast rate, moving 21 miles an hour. And that's because it's going to be going through those strong trade winds picking up by that jet stream. So obviously, typically when you see storms going like this up near Newfoundland, moving near Nova Scotia, those storms be moving up to 30 miles an hour because of the trade winds here in the jet stream picking up this storm speed. Let's now go ahead and look at our second big thing we're talking about, 92L. So now it is a 70% for the next 5 days and a 20% still for the next 48 hours. So we're still watching out for some thunderstorms, part of a trough of low pressure, then the Bay of Campeche, and we're looking at for some gradual development within the next 5 days here. We're looking at a depression most likely as early as later this week, and maybe even a tropical storm as well. And then our newest part of the family here is a 20% here. We do have a 10-20%. So it actually does have a 10% for the next 48 hours. And I think this will be a 93L 2.0. It's a 10-20%, and then it rapidly increases every single advisory. So I think this could very well be almost a 40% medium risk as early as today, tonight. So I do think this will be another 93L 2.0. It starts off surprising everybody, and then it blows up here because I've been looking at the conditions here, and it's looking pretty good. And I've actually been looking at the MDR for a few days now, how the monsoon season is going to be bringing a huge moisture wave of the MJO. So really watching out possibly for an interesting late June for the MDR, and as well interesting July. And I actually have been mentioning July to be an MDR year in multiple of my hurricane season forecasts, and it looks like it's about to verify right here because GFS is showing some very interesting things for late June here, and this could be very well the first wave. So a lot of people are probably shocked about this, but I do think this could very well become something very interesting based on the conditions. So it's going to be interesting. This could be the fight for Claudette, whether this could be Claudette or whether this could be Claudette. I don't think I'm pronouncing that right, but this is going to be basically a boxing battle between soon, most likely 94L, which it should be 94L within the next 24 hours, or at least an invest there, 94L, or 92L. So it's going to be a pretty big battle here between these two. Obviously, this one's not an invest yet, but it can be an invest very soon. But the battle of AOIs, or area of interest. But let's not go ahead and get a look at the models. Let's now go ahead and get a look now at what the global GFS model is showing. So there you see that little isobar right there, and that little closed isobar is exactly where that LLC is right there, that low pressure. So that's exactly where we do have our status there for tropical depression 2L, which will most likely be built very soon with the next 12 hours, 1,004 millibars in the next 12 hours. So they actually do have it decreasing millibar, so it is going to be strengthening and becoming a bit more organized. And as it goes up the Gulf Stream here into those still decent waters, 20, maybe 25, 26 degrees Celsius, which could very well sustain a small, disorganized tropical storm. So as it goes up the Gulf Stream here, this will be increasing in speed. And actually, the further it goes into the Gulf Stream, the further it's going to be away from that shear and that dry air, because that strong southeast ridge, which you see right here, we actually have a southeast ridge right here that's bringing in a ton of shear across the east coast in very dry conditions. As someone who lives in the southeast, I can verify there is a southeast ridge there that is bringing in very dry and very sunny conditions here. So as it goes east northeast, it will get further away from that southeast ridge. So although it is moving in cooler waters, it will be thriving more. But now let's go ahead and take a look here at the next 24 hours, and we have something very interesting right here off that tropical wave right here in the MDR, and it's exactly why it actually does have a 10% for the next 48 hours, because it actually does have a chance to develop not too far from now, which is why I said it can be the competition for Claudette, because there we have that low right there, Invest 92L in the Bay of Campeche. So at the same time, they're kind of at very similar status. They're at this point, by the next 24 hours, I do expect it to be 94L, and I do expect that the very will have a way better chance for development in the next 24 hours. So obviously right now it's 1020, but in 24 hours, I think this could very well be at a medium risk for both 48 and 5 days. For the next 51 hours, by June 16th, this thing actually has a better status compared to 92L. Look at 92L. Oh my god, there's a fly flying all over me. Oh my gosh, I guess the fly doesn't like the Marlins. Whatever, we're not talking about baseball. Stay focused. So look at 92L. I mean, it's basically still hovering around the Bay of Campeche and still really yet to organize itself. Obviously, it does. Oh my gosh, it does have some good convection at the moment. It's getting its act together, but look at what we're seeing here with this AOI right now. It looks a lot better, and it looks like it's getting ahead of 92L in the process to develop. So it looks like this new AOI can very well steal Claudette. So it looks like 92L is being robbed. Not only was it robbed the title bill, it's most likely, if this tropical disturbance here that the National Hurricane just highlighted becomes something tropical, it may seal the letter Claudette. So obviously it's only a 1020. I can't really say it's going to form, but based on the conditions, this could be a short-lived system. And I mean, GFS and CMC do have something with this actually getting maybe up to maybe like 1,004 millibars, 1,005 millibars. So this could very well be a very short-lived weak tropical storm. But let's not go ahead and look at June 18th. So by June 18th, we do actually have now 92L. At this point, it'll most likely be named for sure. And then by the June 18th, this tropical disturbance here, or potential tropical system we're watching out for in the MDR, will most likely be dying out. Like I did say, the conditions are going to be right and ripe for a very small time period. I mean, I think the peak for this will be most likely June 17th. So this could very well be maybe a 24-hour lived tropical storm. So I do think there's definitely a chance this could very well form. If it does form, like I did say, I don't want to sound like a super fork or a super cast or something like that, but this does have a chance to form here before 92L. I'm not saying for sure this will form. It's likely though. There is a chance it could form. I mean, a lot of people didn't think 93L could become anything, but look at it. It's about to be a tropical storm. So I'm going to really watch out for the tropics, but then you do see by June 19th, like 92L is a lot better. We still do have a low right there for this AOI right now, but at this point, the shear is going to be taking it over. So there's going to be a lot of shear to the west of this AOI and a lot of dry air. So this will have a good 48 hours, maybe 72 hours from now to get its act together and become something before 92L steals a title. So it's going to be a very close call. But 92L making landfall here at 1,003 millibars for Louisiana on June 19th. So they still do have this trend for Louisiana. Let's now go ahead and get a look here at what the CMC or / Canadian model is showing. There you see those isobars right there for for tropical depression 2L right there. So obviously, why wouldn't they show that being in that region as well? CMC, this is the latest update here, 12Z. There is that tropical wave right there following that monsoon wave from Africa in the MDR region. So you do see it is kind of getting an advantage and becoming something very interesting here. The thing is, I don't think CMC actually has it forming into anything, but they do still have that low pressure. But look, compare the days, June 17th, there's that low for 92L. It does look a lot better than this. So it looks like GFS does have this tropical wave becoming something faster and actually becoming something, because the CMC does actually have that low, but it does not really have it becoming anything interesting. And then CMC does have 92L affecting portions of Louisiana, but very, very, very weak here. So it looks like CMC is onto something here. Let's not go ahead and get a look here at the vorticity map. So we do have a decent amount of vorticity with tropical depression 2L, but it's very, very disorganized. Obviously, this tropical depression it's obviously about to be a storm, but overall it does not look too good. That could be reason because of that southeast ridge is within like 50 miles away from destroying the storm. If this formed any more to the east or anywhere to the west, closer to the Outer Banks, I think the storm would actually not even be anything because of the southeast ridge and how much shear and how much drier there is. Just it's like 90 or tropical depression 2L is on thin ice here. I mean, they're like the ropes finally, like when you're holding on the ropes about like tear apart. That's exactly how close it is from dying, but it just makes it. But look at the vorticity forecast for 16th of June. Look at that. That's actually a really decent vorticity signature, and the fact that we're seeing a vorticity signature for something like that this early in the season. Typically, you kind of see MDR August, September, and portions of July, but like I did mention, I think this season can very well be seeing an early start to the MDR season. I think late June and much of July will be very interesting here. So this is exactly why I am watching out, because this will verify with the monsoon season and with the SAL pushing to the north and that shear pushing to the north. So it looks like everything's looking pretty good with this. I'm going to have to see and wait whether GFS continues this trend and whether the CMC gets on this, and as well we can see if the European gets on this. But look at the vorticity comparison for the next 50 hours. Look, there's really no vorticity whatsoever for the Bay of Campeche, but there's definitely something going on there in the MDR. So obviously it's hard to say whether this will form at all, or if it does, if there is a chance, will it form before or after. I mean, but it looks really good by June 17th early on, and it even looks decent by June 18th. But by June 18th, it looks like 92L for sure has become a tropical system or a tropical storm, because you can see that really good vorticity signature. But let's actually go. I actually want to check a look at 850 millibars on this vorticity. I mean, look at that 850 millibars. That is looking some really good subtropical winds there, subtropical rotation. And you can definitely see there is definitely some deep convection. Oops, that voice crack. Wow, that's embarrassing. Some deep convection. I mean, that is a really good signature. Obviously, I know we're looking at 850 millibars, but that is some really good vorticity there. I mean, holy cow, that's actually quite surprising. If CMC were to show this as well, I would definitely be a little bit more intrigued in this, but obviously it's kind of one more with one model. But the fact that the National Hurricane Center has highlighted it does make this a little bit more interesting, and we're not just like looking at one system, which will only run is showing here. But here's a comparison by the 19th for vorticity. So we still have a small vorticity signature, that low there for the upcoming most likely 94L. And then look at 92L. So at this point, once we get past the 18th is when 92L will kind of overtake this in organization and the strength overall. Let's now go ahead and get a look at the shear forecast. So a lot of people are probably wondering, there's a ton of shear and drier Adrian in the MDR. Well, actually really not. But let's go ahead and right now focus on tropical depression conditions for 2L, and there's actually not many conditions that are going to be limiting this, or not. There's not many limiting factors right now. This load's kind of just to the west or just to the east, are all that shear from that southeast ridge. That ridge has kind of pushed a little bit more to the north, so we're seeing a ton of shear kind of for the northwest Atlantic and the northeast here. That's exactly why we're seeing some severe weather up there in the northeast. And even as it goes east-northeast away, it's going to have a nice path with no shear. So overall, conditions are pretty good for no shear there. Let's go ahead and look at the MDR shear-wise. So the 16th, obviously the 15th. So by tomorrow, this AOI low pressure may be kind of somewhere here. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit of a slow mover. So there's really no shear there, just off Africa by tomorrow in the early afternoon. But as we now go into the 16th and 17th, we know this is when it's going to be kind of getting its act together. And you can kind of see there is a small amount of shear, but I mean, we're talking maybe 20 knots of shear basically max. So there's actually not going to be that much shear as it goes even to the 18th here. There's not that much shear whatsoever. So I think this is definitely something very interesting. Obviously, we're not seeing much shear as well in the Bay of Campeche. So overall, both these AOIs don't have much to worry about with shear wise, because as we go into the 19th and 20th, that shear is going to continue to bend as a result of the ridge bending. That you see that ridge bending its shear towards the Caribbean and Northeast Gulf. So it's going to be allowing for some pretty good conditions up there for 92L. So overall, conditions aren't looking too shabby for both these AOIs or area of interest considering the shear. But let's see if there's any drier, because obviously when we talk about MDR, the first thing you want to know is there Saharan dust or is there not, because obviously the Saharan dust or SAL was the main reason why 2020 did not have additional storms. We could have at least had 3 or 4 additional storms last season if the MDR was recuperating, but obviously there was a ton of shear and a ton of dust because of that. So let's go and see what we see. So like I did say, there is going to be a pretty decent moisture wave as a result of the monsoon season. We do have some good moisture for the Bay of Campeche. Obviously, a ton of moisture, no problem for tropical depression to help. Like I did say, there's going to be some drier to the west because of that southeast ridge, which actually the southeast ridge seems as if it's going to start weakening actually very, very soon here. I think yesterday was its peak, but there you see that big moisture wave. Look at this 16. That is a very significant moisture wave. And not only that, but there's really no dry air except for the air to the north because of that dust. So this is actually looking very, very good here. That's a very significant and large moisture bubble, and that's exactly what you want to see. And look how that just kind of rotates as well. I mean, that's something you want to see. That is something you want to see for an MDR, even tropical system. But look as well, I mean, even 92L has a pretty significant moisture bubble. So either way, we're watching out for these two systems right here. I mean, can they really well be close or even tied with Claudette? I mean, this is going to be very interesting here because the GFS is showing something very interesting while CMC is kind of showing it but backing off with severity or intensity. But let's not go ahead and again look at the detailed forecast for tropical depression 2L. Alright guys, so I just went on Discord right now to pause my video, and it looks like 94L just became official. 94L just became official as I made my video. So now we're not only be talking about TDO2, but 92L, and now officially 94L. It's funny because I've been referring to this 94L the whole time, and now it actually becomes official. So we now have 94L. So we have a little bit more of an extension to this video. So that is definitely very interesting here that we finally have 94L. So I guess I was right, but let's go ahead and look at the convection forecast here for tropical depression 2L. It looks like that convection is slowly on dying out here, but obviously it still has the wind and most likely will still have the winds to most likely become a subtropical storm. So convection isn't looking too great, but we still have some high cloud, cold echo tops up there with negative 50 degrees Celsius. So either way, we still have some pretty strong severe storms around that certain area of the trough. But that's what it's looking like right now. But let's go ahead and look at the intensity and track. So here's look at now at the latest National Hurricane Center cone here. So we do have a tropical storm here tomorrow and into Tuesday. So obviously it's looking like we're going to be seeing a decent tropical storm within the system going far into the east-northeast. And as you can tell, it's moving quite quickly because of how fast it's going within 12 hours. Intensity guidance for 2L, they actually have it getting maybe up to a weak to moderate tropical storm. Maybe looking at anywhere from maybe 45 to maybe 50 miles an hour, 55 miles an hour max. And I didn't realize I was leaning this way, guys. I don't know why I was leaning that way. So I do apologize. I had no idea I was leaning outside the webcam. But yeah, looking at maybe 50 to 55 miles an hour for this storm here. So that's actually not too shabby at all. I'm kind of looking more towards 50 miles an hour, the way the convection's rapidly dying apart. And that could be because maybe there is going to be some drier entering the system right now. But this can very well start to get its dural maximum most likely by tonight. So let's now go ahead and get a look here at what we're seeing for 92L convection wise. And this thing has rapidly fell apart. And I think that is due to the part because the low pressure is now over Mexico, I think. Where I think the low pressure is open, but it's getting very, very close to Mexico. Right? So right now this low pressure is super open. We do have still some convection around this low pressure. But right now this low pressure looks absolutely awful. So I mean, it may get accurate. Let's actually go ahead and look here if we can get a look at visible high resolution. So we do still have this low pressure quite open at the moment. Here we still have some cloud tops with some thunderstorms, obviously. But right now this thing is super wide open. We still have some thunderstorms kind of in those eastern quadrants with some decent convection. But right now this thing is looking absolutely awful at the moment. But obviously this thing is supposed to be hovering for the next few days. So it should not start looking good until around maybe the 16th here. Let's go ahead and look at the intensity guidance here for 92L, and models are getting this to the form as basically the next 3 days here. So it's not going to be looking good anytime soon until next to 3 days. Now let me tell you, this IR here for 94L is quite impressive considering that this is a new invest. Obviously it looked a lot better with kind of some closed areas of convection and thunderstorms, but you can definitely see we do have some pretty intense thunderstorms that are embedded within this convection. You see at the negative 60 degrees Celsius up there in the atmosphere. So overall we do have some pretty strong thunderstorms developing within this. Let's actually go ahead and get a look here at visible high resolution. You guys see this looks pretty darn good. Obviously we do have a lot of convection within this low pressure right now, so we do have some decent thunderstorms, and it's exactly why this variable is an invest so early on. So it's looking quite good at the moment here. If this does kind of get a lot better formation, it kind of gets a specific area of convection and then maybe even a closed low, this could very well become a tropical system very soon here. It's looking pretty darn interesting early on. So here's look now at the tropical, or no, at the Invest 94L intensity guidance, and they actually have this forming within the next 12 hours. Within the next 12 hours. So we can very well have 94L stealing Claudette from 92L. So it looks like we got our answers, or our questions answered. Which one? Battle of Claudette? Well, it looks like there's not going to be any battle anymore because this looks very good here. So if this happens, if this actually becomes Claudette, we're talking about seeing letter D before mid-June, because obviously it looks like Invest 92L will be forming within the next 3 or 4 days. So we're talking letter D. That's number 4, guys. That is 4 storms before July, which I don't think many people expected this season based on the slow start we had this June. So we got Anna in May. We've had a pretty big gap, and now we have Bill about to form, Claudette about to form, and then letter D, I believe, is it Daniel or Danny, I think, about to form by the end of the week here. So tropical storm, a lot of these are getting up to a category 1, but do not let that fool you, because like the CANSIPs and a lot of the overall computer models that first get on Invest like showing Cat 1s for some reason. Even if it's expected to be a 40-mile-an-hour tropical storm, they like showing Cat 1. So if anything, based on the time it has, a strong tropical storm cannot be ruled out the possibility. And about the SAL, we're actually not seeing that much SAL right now. A lot of the SAL is kind of lost to the north right now. And actually this SAL kind of bent in a specific way to allow this moisture wave. So there's the moisture wave right there. So that big moisture bubble is kind of large enough and strong enough to push away that SAL, which is why the SAL bends like that, goes up and down. And that's because that low pressure and that moisture wave is right within that bent part. So SAL is not going to be a problem whatsoever for this. So it's very interesting. But hope you got through the video, and I'm hoping to have another video out within the next few hours.